All right. Good evening. I don't know what this is doing here. We're going to put this off to the side. Tonight, I decided I would pour out a bottle that I haven't touched in a while. Widow Jane Decadence. This is the 2023, batch number 23, bottle number 97. It is 91 proof, and this is a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys finished in maple syrup barrels. Found this at my local liquor store for $110, and I passed. I had heard that it was pretty dang good, but I didn't want to pull the trigger. And then they also had the regular Widow Jane, and they also had the Widow Jane Vaults from the Vaults, which is like the limited release that they do for about $250. Definitely didn't buy that. Just I had never had anything from brand, and if you're gonna ask that much money for a specialty finished product, I have to have had tried it first, or at least gotten a lot of good reviews. So it was kind of sad that I didn't pick that bottle up, and I ended up going to a sister location of the liquor store near my parents, and it was in maybe like an hour away. Didn't find anything there. The only reason that I went there in the first place is because the location that I usually go to around my parents' house, we'll just call that my parents' liquor store, parent liquor shop. I don't know what we're going to call it, because I don't want to make it sound like they own a liquor store, but anyway. They had run out of a single barrel of their Whistle Pig, which I had purchased. I thought it tasted like soft, sweet cinnamon chews, and it was very mild, and I was just getting into rye whiskey, so I decided I wanted another one. They didn't have any at that location, so I had to drive an hour to their sister location. They had a bottle there, and I figured, well, there's 4 other stores in the area, and I don't come out to this part of New Jersey very often. What's the harm? I got a couple hours. They're all within like 15 minutes of each other, so I figured I'd take a look. 3 of the stores gave me nothing to write home about. Overpriced, overcrowded, terrible selection. One store did have Buffalo Trace, the smaller bottles, for about $35, which at that time was the lowest that I had seen in the state of New Jersey. They typically run about like $60. I know you can get it at home for $18. I hear it all the time. Trust me, in New Jersey, if it's got Buffalo Trace on there, people will pay double or triple MSRP. But back to the story. The 4th shop that I went to was actually a ShopRite liquor store that was not attached to the ShopRite. It was actually like a mile away from it. But I didn't think of it. I walked in, they had a very small display case. They had Shanks and Bombers, actually, but I didn't want to buy either of those because they had this for $89.99. Widow Jane Decadence. And I thought, for $89.99, I've heard a lot of good things, and it's $20, almost $30 cheaper than what I would get otherwise. Perfect. I'll buy it. And now I'll tell you what I think of it. Definitely smells like boozy maple syrup. That's a positive. I'm a little stuffy on the right side, so my usually defunct nose is going to be particularly inaccurate tonight. just what the doctor ordered. A little bit of alcohol injected right into your nose. I've heard of medicinal whiskey. Do you think that might have been what they did back then? They wanted to wake somebody up. They put a bottle of whiskey underneath their nose and go, oh! Is it like those old cartoons? Would it wake them up, right? It's like those old cartoons where you'd have a kid or some wandering passerby and the smoke from a pie wafts down and grabs it to him by the nose and leads them over. I'm just being silly. I don't really get much out of this nose, despite, and like I said, I'm not really working at full capacity here, but it just smells like maple syrup, like really boozy maple syrup. And this is blended whiskey finished in maple syrup barrels. So, it tracks. Has some decent legs for 91 proof. It's got great color for a 91 proof whiskey. Doesn't say how old it is. It does give me a recipe for Jane's Crown Old Fashioned, which I might try one of these days. Haven't had the opportunity. I've only drank this straight. Widow Jane Decadence, there's no other word to describe this. Inaccurate. We took some of our legendary bourbons and finished them in barrels that held New York's finest artisanal maple syrup from ground maple. No wonder there's the Jane's Crown Old Fashioned. The result is a rich, creamy, smooth, and slightly sweet. This smells a lot more than slightly sweet. Mouthful of whiskey flavor that is that is way beyond good. It's decadent. And this appears to be a blend of Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana bourbon bottled by Widow Jane Distillery in Brooklyn, New York. Probably some Dickel in here, and some MGP, and who knows what else. But if they can finish it in a barrel and make it taste good, you know, I'm not going to knock them on the price. All right, let's take a sip. You know, that is the thickest 91 proof bourbon I've probably ever had. And the finish is almost like a little zip, like you'd get after eating a waffle with drenched in maple syrup. That's a lot better than I thought it would be. Let's try it again. And it did work its way up. This is just unassuming, silky smooth, very sweet. Luxurious, actually. Unoffensive. This is quite nice. If I just had to sip on this, or if I just had to have this in a cocktail, I think this would really, really mix well. This reminds me of a freshly paved road. You know how you just glide right on by and you don't even hear anything? Your tires are just singing, right? Quietly, because they're tires, they don't talk. Yeah, that's what this reminds me of, like a smooth ride. Like nothing ever happened, that there was nothing there before. Just move right along. I don't think it's an unpleasant bourbon whiskey to sip. But I would say that it's not the most complex. You kind of get what you pay for. You are getting a blend of whiskeys. It's going to taste like maple syrup. It is like a maple syrup whiskey reduction. Not the most complex. It's 91 proof. That's one thing that I do wish it had. If this was like 100 proof or 110 proof, just something to really give it a little bit more kick. I feel like if the flavors were turned up a little bit more, it would be better. And with the mouthfeel that it has right now, I feel like if it were 100 or 110 proof, right around that range, it would probably be even better. Like, am I crazy to think that? I mean, it's still pretty good. I can't knock it for saying that it's bad. It's pretty good. Yeah. Hardly any ethanol. It just is so smooth and so sweet. It's like a slip and slide. As soon as you think that you got your belly down on there, you just slide right across. There's just no stopping it. It doesn't linger. I mean, the finish is there, and I'm tasting it, and it tastes pretty good. Like I said, just maple syrup. Like you ate a waffle drenched in maple syrup, with maybe a little bit of cinnamon on there, but I'm not getting the most complicated notes. It's simple, it's good, and I can't knock it. Would I buy another one of these bottles for $90? I actually would. I would buy another one of these bottles for $90. $90. $89.99. Because this is not exactly my favorite pour bourbon. I neglected to mention when I first tried it, I wasn't a fan of it. I thought it tasted upon further reflection, I think I would buy a second bottle of this. However, with the caveat that this bottle would last me an extraordinary long period of time, probably 2 to 5 years. I'm just not going to drink it very often. And I think that is a knock against this Widow Jane Decadence. It's really one note, but it does what it does exceptionally well. Exceptionally well. And yeah, this is good. And I agree with the rich, creamy, smooth, and definitely not slightly sweet. This is pretty dang sweet. Yeah. So how's everybody's night going? Good? You drinking some good whiskey? You hanging out? You chilling? I can't even say that with a straight face. I'm like an old curmudgeon at this point. I don't keep up with slang. I don't tell people what to do. I'm just a nut. I swear to God. I like spending time with my cat. I drink some whiskey. I go ride horses. I go to work. I paint. I try to keep up with reading and doing hobbies. I don't watch TV. I'm too old for the slang, man. I'm too old for it. Doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I'm right in the middle of my life where I'm too old to be young, but I'm too young to be old. Here I am supposed to be talking about whiskey, and now I'm complaining about how old something is. Meanwhile, this thing doesn't say how old it is, and it is just fine. So, thank you very much for being a lovely bottle of whiskey. Something simple, something sweet, something delicious that I would recommend if you got a sweet tooth. But try to find a good price for it. I mean, maybe it might hit your palate a little bit better than mine. Anyway, cheers. Have a wonderful night. And I'm curious to see what this smells like tomorrow morning.